Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Everybody have a good spring break? All good in the hood? Glad everyone is here. No super big announcements to make. I'm going to tease you, I have a big announcement to make next week about next year. So make sure you're here. Make sure you're here next week for that announcement, and I'll tell you about that. One thing to tell you is that John McFarlane has brought a bunch of pictures from Zambia, back in the back that feel free to look at throughout the morning that you're going to enjoy. And remember what great work that they did on trip to Zambia. So feel free to check those out throughout the morning if you need to get up and look at that. It won't bother me if you get up while I'm talking. I promise you. Also want to remind you that 2 more weeks left. Study of Mark. We're going to do the end of chapter 15 next week, and then Easter Sunday, and then the next Thursday after Easter will be our last meeting as we look at Mark 16, and then we'll break until next year, the Thursday after Labor Day. I'll send you a schedule about all that, but just to let you know. And I think that's about it. I'll also send you, got a new list of Monte de Cristo, and I see there's some great donations out there, so thank you for that, and keep those up. We're going to do that through the end of this school year, so to speak. Last thing is, not wearing a jersey today, but I'm wearing the Longhorns. I started to wear something because it's opening day for most Major League Baseball teams today. So I started to wear a baseball jersey, but I couldn't ignore the fact that the Longhorns are in the Sweet 16. And I have to tell you a quick Sweet 16 story. Back in 2002, some of you may remember TJ Ford's first year at Texas. Longhorns had a really good season. It was a bad year, so to speak. This is early 2002, so things were still kind of bad economy-wise in the nation. So we weren't able to travel at the TV station very much, at least not sports. Well, Texas makes the tournament, of course, and they have a good team. I think they can go pretty long way. Well, luckily, they're in Dallas for the first 2 rounds. Costs nothing to go to Dallas. I drive up there, cover the first 2 rounds, drive back. Well, now they're in Madison, Wisconsin for the Sweet 16. And the problem with basketball travel for March Madness is it's March, it's spring break times. It's not easy to go anywhere cheaply. So I'm trying to get from Austin, Texas to Madison, Wisconsin. It's going to cost like $1,000 a plane ticket for two people to go, for me to go with a photographer. And I go to my boss and say, really need to go up there because if you don't go to the Sweet 16 as media, you can't go to the Final Four. And I think they have a good chance to go to the Final Four. And he's like, ooh, that's a little too much. Sorry. Like, what? Oh, we got to go. I said, no, no, no. So I thought about it and I went back and looked, and I could get to Chicago for like $300 or something like that. So I went back to him and said, what if I just go to Chicago? He said, well, let's see if they win on Friday. And if they do, you go by yourself on Saturday morning. I was like, okay. So Sweet 16, they play Friday night. And I remember my son, who was, what was he, 5 years old at the time. He's playing T-ball. I go to a T-ball game, and I've got a radio where I'm listening to the game as they're playing Oregon. The Luke and Luke that was on the team for Oregon, and I'm listening. They barely lost, and I'm like, part of me was upset, and part of me was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to fly to Chicago and then drive 3.5 hours to Madison just to cover the Sweet 16. You just never know what you have to go through to cover March Madness. All right, let's stand and let's sing. All right, Gaines, take it away. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Oh, fill me. Fall fresh on me. Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all that you do for each and every one of us, especially during this Lenten season as we get ready for Easter. We bless everything in your name. Amen. All right, as I mentioned earlier, we're starting chapter 15. We're doing the first half of it, so to speak, verses 1 through 20. And things are getting pretty serious for Jesus here as he's going to trial. It's the trial with Pontius Pilate. It's early in the morning. Religious leaders bind Jesus and deliver him to Pontius Pilate. And Pilate asks him, "Are you the king of Jews?" Simple question. Jesus, though, is playing coy, gives him a brief and qualified answer. He says, "You have said so. You have said so." It's all he says. You have said so. Despite numerous accusations from the chief priests, Jesus remains silent, leaving Pilate amazed at his lack of defense. We look at Pontius Pilate as the bad guy in so many ways, which he kind of is. But look what he does next. Following a Passover custom, Pilate offers to release one prisoner. And recognizing that Jewish leaders acted out of envy, he suggests releasing Jesus. Pilate suggests releasing Jesus from being captured, from being tried. The chief priests incite the crowd to ask for Barrabas. Give me Barrabas, is what it says in a couple other books. Matthew and John, I believe. Give me Barabbas. What if the crowd had said something different? How would things be today? Would it be changed? But they wanted Barabbas. Barabbas went free. He was a rebel and a murderer. He's gone from being captured. Under pressure to satisfy the rioting crowd, Pilate releases him and orders Jesus to be flogged and hands him over to be crucified. Crucify him, says the crowd. Roman soldiers lead Jesus into the palace and gather a whole battalion of about 600 men, to mock him, to ridicule his claim as the king, as they dress him in a purple robe. They place a crown of thorns on his head. They strike him with a staff and spit on him. They kneel and mock homage and salute him as King of Jews. That's what Jesus went through for us, each and every one of us. After their mockery, they strip him of the robe, put his clothes back on him, and lead him away to his execution to die on a cross. Pilate asked him a question, and Jesus said, "You have said so." What would you have said? Jesus just said, "You have said so." Wow. All right, let's look at some questions. What was the Jewish religious leaders, plural, goal in sending Jesus to Pilate? Why did Jesus not defend himself? Why did he just say, "You have said so"? Why do you think Pilate offered to release either Jesus or Barabbas? And how does the soldiers' cruel mockery, the purple robe, the crown of thorns, the "Hail, King of Jews," highlight the irony of Jesus' kingship? All right, talk about that for a little while, and I'll be back. All right, how's the discussion going? It's I think each chapter gets deeper as we're getting further into Mark. And this is getting very deep in a lot of ways. So I handed out paper and pens to everybody. Hopefully the pens work. I checked them beforehand, so they were working over the weekend when I was trying to find some around the house. If not, please share if you don't have enough. So I'm going to ask you a question in a second to write something down. But before I get to that, I wanted to ask some questions just to think about. There's nothing that you have to write down about this. Nothing that you have to say. You can say something in the group discussion here in a second. But I just want you to think about some of these things as we're thinking about what Jesus went through for us. What Jesus went through for us. It's a little game of have you ever. Sometimes you may see, if you're ever on Facebook, you'll see people put, have you ever gotten a ticket? Have you ever skipped school? And you get a point for that. It's like a silly thing. So it's something kind of like that. But read these and just think about, in your past, have you ever done something or stayed silent, mainly because of pressure from a group, crowd, peers, family, workplace, social media, or authority figure, even when you knew deep down it was wrong or unfair? Have you ever succumbed to peer pressure? That's basically what that asks. Have you ever done that? Has that affected someone else? Kind of like the peer pressure of everyone joining in to yell, crucify him, affected Jesus Christ in what we just read. Have you ever chosen or been tempted to choose a Barrabas over Jesus? Something rebellious, destructive, self-serving, or sinful instead of what you know honors God or is right? Have you ever chosen the wrong path? I would venture to say that we all have taken a step, at least, on the wrong path at one time in our life. Do you remember doing that? Do you remember why? Have you ever been mocked, ridiculed, dismissed, or treated unfairly for your faith, your values, your convictions, or standing up for what is right? And if you did, how did you respond? So that's what Jesus did for each and every one of us. He's standing up for what he believes in. Have you ever done that? How did you respond? Last one. Have you ever stayed silent in the face of false accusations, injustice, or wrong, like Jesus did before Pilate, when all he said was, "You have said so"? Why? Or have you ever spoken up? And what happened? I'm going to venture to say that we've all been through moments like this in our lifetime. Not as serious as what Jesus is going through, but something, a step in that direction. So we have a general idea of the courage, the bravery, the guts that Jesus had to stand up, not just for himself, but for each and every one of us. But hopefully that helps you see what he did and how tough it was. To do this, not just for himself, but for the world. He changed the world by going through this. Okay, now you can get your pen and your paper out. And again, knock on wood, hopefully the pen works. I want you to write down 3 things to answer this question. What makes a successful man? What makes a successful man? And we can each have different answers. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. It's what you think, what you believe in. When you're a kid, you think a successful man is the guy who has the coolest car. When you're in your 20s, you think a successful man is the guy who has the most money. What makes a successful man? Just 3 things. Are the pens working? No? Need some more? I got more. Some of them had to shake to get them to work. What makes a successful man? Again, it's not a test. You're not going to be graded. Don't worry about it. But what do you see as a successful man, especially now that we're old? Is it still money? Is it family? Is it having a home? Is it being a lover of Christ? What makes a successful man? All right, I don't have a microphone to pass around, but just yell out. Give me some words that you've written down from all the tables. Integrity, a good word. What else? Humility. Faith. Good words. What else? Money. I mean, it's true. What do you got, Robert? Relationship with Jesus. Family. But it's probably changed through the years, depending on how old we are and what we've been through. We go through different things. There you go. Good answers. But let's read what Mark wrote in 17 through 19. The most successful man in history. And they clothed him with purple. They platted a crown of thorns and put it about his head and began to salute him. Hail, King of the Jews! And they smote him on the head with a reed and spit upon him, bowing their knees, worshiped him. The success here is someone wearing purple. The success here is someone wearing a crown of thorns. The success here is someone being saluted. Hail, King of the Jews. The success here is someone who was hit on the head with a reed. The success here is someone who is spit upon. The success here is someone who is worshiped. That's what Jesus went through as the most successful man in history. That's what he went through for each and every one of us. They bowed to him. They got on their knees for him. Sometimes money isn't the successful thing. Sometimes your job isn't the successful thing. Sometimes it's what you've done for other people and what Jesus did for each and every one of us. All right, let's look at some questions. And by the way, you can just leave your pens on the tables. I'll get them out afterwards. If Jesus is the King of Kings while holding a reed and wearing thorns, how does that redefine what a successful man looks like in God's eyes? Does Jesus' example teach us that we should never defend ourselves? Why or why not? Jesus or Barrabas teaches us something about peer pressure. How has peer pressure affected you? And how does Jesus' suffering affect you and how you live your life? Thank you.